animals are kept under conditions that are unsuitable for them. For example, we can see how something that has become a fad, which are axolotls, are kept in aquariums which has doesn't have the sufficient water type, so on and so forth. And these only will make them um have a loss for their lifespan. And mind you that this is solely for the desire of humans to keep animals. And then, for example, moving on, we have birds, which birds actually, a lot of people who keep them, they have their wings clipped just so that the birds won't fly around. And this also exemplifies how animals are kept only under human greed. And then this shows a direct impact of how we want things to be how they are, in which like we desire, and we do not let them thrive in their own environments, so on and so forth. And then, as stated by the side opposition in their POI, the environment outside is unsuitable for animals. And to that, we can say that we can make it more suitable. We can have more walkable cities, to ensure that animals can thrive and not get hit by cars and so on and so forth. Because see, this island in Japan, which only has cats in it, like a high population of cats, and where in which they are able to thrive and live. I will not be accepting that POI. And then moving on to my second point, which is animal exploitation. So animal exploitation talks about how animals are used for the benefit of humans. This can result into things such as inbreeding. So inbreeding is the act of breeding um like two species of an animal such as cats. Inbreeding is the act of breeding in species of animals that is rare, such as cats, to attain a feature that humans deem to be beautiful in their eyes. So, for example, munchkins. Munchkins is a type of cat that is small and is done by breeding like the mother and the son together multiple times, because for one, these cats are rare, so it's hard to come by, and that's why they would um breed it like incestuously. And then this causes many adverse health effects to the animals, such as being unable to breathe and then having stunted legs, and this causes them to have a shorter lifespan. And this also harms the animals slowly by making them deteriorate, and this also causes them to, for one, have a shorter lifespan. And mind you that this is all in the name for human pleasure. And with that, I would like to end my speech with reiterating my stance, which is animal safety is above human importance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Shazlin from the government side. I now welcome Deputy Leader of Opposition, Brother Shahril, to continue with their case.
I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll be starting my speech. 3 and 2 and 1. Panel, if one day you walk around and see a starving, damaged, or dying animal, would you let them as is, or would you take care of them? This what differs us from the governments over a basis of morality. In my part of speech, I'll definitely explain why we side the opposition have the better weight in winning this case compared to the government side. But then again, definitely, we will take care of them, in regardless if they are exotic or domestic animals, which means our moral is proven compared to them. So before I move on to my further argumentations and points, I would like to give a bit of rebuttals towards their side. But before that, I will only allow 2 POIs for my speech, so please, side government, use them wisely. For the first point I would like to rebut is where they mention about animal exploitation is normalized by this motion. First of all, when you say exploitation is normalized, you are pretty much demonetizing your own points, because first of all, you have mentioned on how much you will take care of these animals while you are not even taking care of them in the first place. Your second speaker mentioned about they will make sure their habitat's safe, so we don't need to take care of them. This is pretty much proven that you guys have contradictions within your points. First of all, if you want to change the habitats of those wild animals in the wilderness, that's pretty much exploiting their habitats in the first place, because the nature of the habitats of their and of these animals that you really say you care about is the most suitable habitats where they should be. And then you go around first speaker talking about how taking care of pet is hard because problems with proper care due to lack of food and healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, especially panel, when you say something that is pretty much subjective, there are a lot of people out there who are abusing animals, even in our society. And then you said humans are slight and egotistical. We do agree with that. In fact, that's why we are trying to push this motion ahead, because there are people outside who are abusing these animals. And then the main concern here, if we are able to solve this, which is the proper care due to lack of food and healthcare, the government should have given another alternative instead
Yeah,
to
please.
further solve the animal abuse. Give intensive give subsidies to those who own pets to
I
buy
think
food and to give them healthcare. Yes, POI. Just POI, by the way.
two things. Firstly, the fact that we have to take care of animals who used to be able to fend off for themselves shows how much we have changed them physiologically, which points to selfish exploitations of human beings that have been normalized through generations, through decades in our society. So, what is your comment about that?
My comment is, when we take animals in and give them a good care, we are pretty much taking them away from the harsh nature of the outside world, of the wilderness. Let's say you guys mentioned about here animals extinctions, all right? So animal extinctions happens mostly because of the nature itself. We cannot avoid that. But what we can do in order to take care of it, because we both, or both of our sides care about these animals, is that we take them away from the nature, because where we live is geographically, climatically safe for us to live in. Why not take those animals in as well? So then they will not die out there because of the nature itself. Now, let's move on to my points and my argumentations. In this debate, we can distribute in two different scenarios. First is the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. So the worst case scenario for the government side is they said that humans will exploit the animals. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, in our worst case scenario is we only can turn these argumentations upon them, because exploiting animals is pretty much what they are doing right now. Because we are taking care, we are spending more and more time and energy to take care of the animals. Yet you out there
POI?
saying that they should stay in their habitats where there is pretty much a lot of dangers in the first place. Yes, let's be honest.
Do you agree that animal exploitation is a result of keeping them as pets and so on and so forth?
No, definitely not. Because first of all, what have been mentioned again and again, taking care of pets, those domestic and exotic animals, making them as our pet is pretty much what are our moves or intensive to do in order to take care of those endangered animals. Now, moving on to the best case scenario for your side, which is the animals can roam free in their nature habitats. Yes, of course, animals can roam free, but do keep in mind that there are outsiders like hunters who hunt illegally to those animals, which further cause them extinction. We have proof of this. We have some animals who are facing extinction because of this inhumane activities. Why not you guys take care of that problem as well? Instead of saying saying bad things about us, about hearsay, saying that we don't really care about how animals are treated, we only care about ourselves. And our best case scenario is animals are kept safe in our homes. Now let's move on a little bit more about the benefits of the benefits and weight of this debate. First of all, the benefits of keeping the animals as pet is that first of all we take them away from danger. That's our weight. And for their side, their way is to prove to us why leaving the endangered animal in the nature, in the harsh nature, is the problem solver for this case. And we not only have given you some proof of why we should, which is safety of this animal, and the awareness that is created within the society when we take care of the animals instead of letting them as is. And the other side hasn't proven to us why or how they will be able to take care of certain problems or issues within the society, which is the animal abuse, which is the how do they take care of the animals in the wilderness. Of course, the one of their intensive is changing their habitats to be safe is not going to work, as obviously. And I will pass more of the rebuttals to my third speaker. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Sharil from the opposition side. I now welcome the government's whip, Sister Ariana.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So a very good morning I bid to the honorable adjudicators, judges, respected timekeepers, and team opposition. So I will immediately be starting my speech with my rebuttals. So first of all, the leader of opposition has mentioned that simply wanting to get that we have from our arguments, they have assumed that simply wanting to get a pet is to abuse and neglect. And they have argued that just the intention of getting a pet means that the person will take care of the pet. But what they failed to prove is that we must acknowledge that intentions can change, regardless of if their first intention was, oh my God, I feel so pitiful for this animal. I will take it in. They haven't proven how they can ensure that these pets, these owners will continue to take care of these pets because intentions changes. There has been many cases where people take in cats just because they're like, oh, I want a pet, I want to try having a pet. So when they take in the cat, at first they take care of it, they groom it, they feed it daily, and they ensure they have a clean space to live in. But then as time goes on, they're like, oh, having a pet is actually quite burdensome. And then they start to slowly neglect, and maybe it starts by just not, they keep these pets in a cage, and then they have a litter box, for example, and then they're like, I don't want to clean their poop anymore, and then they stop cleaning the litter box, which creates a dirty and not a nice environment for the pet. And then they slowly lose motivation. They're like, they forget about the pet. And it's not just by basic needs such as food and a clean space. If you keep a pet, you need to give it attention because it doesn't have your keep for the sorry, people tend to keep one pet. So if you keep one cat and then you don't play with it, the cat's going to get lonely and animals can get depressed, which is abuse to them. Neglect is abuse. Next, they have said that we have failed to give we have failed to give a mechanism on how our side will fight exploitation and abuse. However, from our side, we have said that so why do people keep pets? There are two reasons people keep pets, one for aesthetic reasons and one for emotional support. So from our side, we say that it is immoral to keep these pets in terms of exploitation and because of neglect. So from side opposition, if you keep pets, how can you ensure that humans will not exploit these pets and neglect them? Whereas on our side, we're saying that it's immoral. Hence, it is immoral to keep pets. That's what we are trying to prove. So the deputy, next, moving on to the, oh, sorry. They have also mentioned that people who have pets will have the money and the incentive to look after them. But like I said, changes happens, and sometimes people start to understand the actual burden, financial burden of having a pet. So then they don't have money, and then what do they do with the pets? They leave it. They let go of the pets just in the streets. So how is that better than just leaving them in their natural environment where they have the primal instinct on how to live, whereas you have domesticated them and removed these instincts and made them not know how to survive by themselves. They have side opposition has also mentioned that we have pets since the start of history. Okay, so why did we have pets in the start of history? We had one of the first pets we had in history is wolves. Wolves that are used for hunting, wolves that are used as transport, pulling sleds, right? So that still counts as exploitation. Although back then it's less of a problem because they're still using their natural instincts. However, it you can't deny that that is still using the animals. You're using the animals for your own benefits. Now, they have also mentioned that we are exploiting them by leaving them alone. I think side opposition
You
doesn't know what exploit means. No, thank you. Doesn't know what exploitation means. Exploitation means to gain something from the pets. By leaving them alone, by leaving them in their natural habitat, how are we exploiting them? And they have said that, so we have argued that taking them in would domesticate them from their natural instincts. And then side opposition has said that they can take care of these pets by taking them in and taking them away from the harsh nature because their habitat is not a safe place for them. One question to set opposition is why is it that they do not have a safe habitat? Why is it that their habitat is no longer a safe place, an adequate, a sufficient place for them to live? Humans, humans have exploited their natural habitats, the forest, and just where they used to live, which makes the habitat inhabitable by the animals. And then you're saying, oh, okay, so since the habitat is not inhabitable now, we should also take in these animals. What opposition refuses to acknowledge is the actual problem of this issue, which is that humans should not exploit nature and animals. So by taking them in and not acknowledging that we are the cause of why they left their natural habitats, it's just cruelty on cruelty. Cruelty on the animals, cruelty on our environment. So shame on side opposition for this because they are meant to be in the natural habitat. What side opposition has is a savior complex in which they think they are saving the animals. So to summarize from side government, my side today is that this house believes that keeping animals as pets is immoral, and the two arguments that we have raised is that is exploitation and neglect because there, if you ask yourself why humans keep animals, it is only due to self-gain. There is no, you can't say that we're taking them for pity because the reason they are in a pitiful state is because of humans in the first place. So with that, I end my speech.
Thank you so much to Sister Ariana from the government side. I now welcome Brother Ryan from the opposition side to continue with their case.
Give me 10 seconds. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel. A dog is a man's best friend. this very statement has proved on how solid the symbiosis of humans and animals have been throughout the years. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to begin my speech by noting on several arguments and statements made by Thai government. So firstly, the whip mentioned on how basically humans' intentions change. And basically, so basically when this one guy says that he couldn't take it anymore, he'll just release the cat to the streets. And they also mentioned, government's whip also mentioned how the animals should return to their natural habitat. Now, my point being that we have to foremost we have to look back on domestication. So what does it mean by domestication? Domestication means that an animal changes not only psychologically but also physiologically, meaning that the whole animal's body change. The animal's bodies change and adapt to their natural surroundings. Now, as you can see, we cannot deny that that domestication is a notable side effect to these animals, making them. But we must take note, however, that as a side effect, domestication has made these animals unable to inhabit this forest because their bodies are not able to adapt anymore. See, imagine releasing a house cat into the Amazon forest. Do you think that the house cat would survive in a day? No, the cat would die of starvation because why? The animals aren't able to adapt. How? Because in order to do, let's say government says, oh, we could do a stage by stage rehabilitation. We could release them one by one to make them adapt slowly and slowly. Wouldn't that take years, even thousands of years, to let them adapt back to their natural habitats? Now, side government also mentioned on how these animals have been no thanks. Science is an ever-changing and constantly evolving field. Now, moving on, I like to mention on how I like to also emphasize on how both the DPM and PM mentioned on how inbreeding is such a very big negative thing among animals. But they also fail to acknowledge the benefits of keeping animals as pets. Not to mention vaccinations, sterilizations. Now, if those measures do not happen, these animals would die. And there would not be population control, which would pose the greater threat to humans themselves. No, yeah, sure.
So you mentioned that these animals would die without vaccination. So
yes, exactly.
Hang on. So before they were domesticated cats, they were wild cats. They became domesticated because of us, and they were able to thrive by themselves. And they needed the vaccine is because we vaccinated them. So what are your thoughts on that?
The reason why we vaccinated them is because we know that these cats have diseases. So by vaccinating them, we can prolong their lifespan. We are letting them stay alive for long because we care. Now, this is what side government fails to realize, that our side cares more compared to side government. Side government keeps on saying that we like to emphasize what is side government's solution to this very problem. We on side opposition, we have proven to you on why we care more. Side government keeps on mentioning on how this is bad, this is immoral, and so on and so forth. But they have not provided a proper mechanism whatsoever. Now, moving on, I like to touch on other points as well. Now, basically, exploitation of animals, right? So they basically mentioned how we cannot use them for emotional support. We cannot depend on these animals because we think that this is animal abuse, and they should just go on and do hobbies. What do you think that crocheting would stop these people from abusing animals? No. Do you think that playing video games would stop the psychological feeling of trying to abuse something? No. The reason why is because psychology is a very hard thing to influence, and that effect could not be done alone by shifting from a hobby and another. So that's why we advocate on education. And also they mentioned on how we do not know a lot about animals. How are we supposed to know about animals if we did not make contact with them? If we did not study about animals, if we did not take them in care? And they also made a fair comparison between children and animals as well. Children and animals are different. Children are offspring. Children are part biologically human. These animals are total strangers. These animals are different. And for us to take care of them in the first place is an act of human empathy. This side government keeps
POI?
No thanks. Side government keeps on putting in the picture that humans are greedy. Humans are narcissists. Humans only think about themselves. No, this is wrong. If the humans had the capacity to take these animals into care in the first place, then why are you saying these statements? And they also,
Yeah,
if they want to bring, if they want to bring up the argument of intentions change, okay, fine, intentions do change. However, these things, there are check and balance mechanisms. People could report to the police. People could do lots of other things as well to prevent these things from going on and so forth. Okay, at least on our side, we have people who care about animals. We have a world where people actually think, people who actually emphasize. Okay, do you guys have any POIs? Okay, so now moving on. Basically, side government mentions less about how their ways are working. We on side opposition have shown to you as to why, we have proven you as to why we care more about animals by bringing them to our places, by bringing them into a safer habitat. And we have also shown to you as to why the narrative shifted, and thus making it impossible for these animals to return to their natural habitats as well. And also, we have shown to you by imposing responsibility, we are actually caring more and more about these animals. Because what side government is trying to do is basically then try to make people less and less responsible about caring animals. Because why? I think that these people they do not have the mental capacity to do so. What? Does side government think that everyone are 6-year-olds or Ted Bundys, about to choke and strangle animals everywhere? Okay, now moving on. We have also proven to you as to why the issue of neglect and abuse is not a barrier to keeping pets, because these things are a very small fraction of it. And that is why most governments or anyone thinks that they have not banned this whatsoever. To compare kids with animals, it's unfair for them to say that it's unfair for them to not impose liability or responsibility to humans whatsoever. And we also say that the issue of neglect and abuse is not a barrier to keeping pets whatsoever. And with that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Brother Ryan from the opposition side. Now you will be given time to prepare for reply speech. For confirmation, reply speech will be given from Sister Kuratu for the government side, right? And for the opposition side will be given by Brother Nabil.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now I give you guys time to prepare for your reply speech. Okay, now it is time for reply speech. We will first start from the opposition side. Now I welcome Brother Nabil.
Just making sure I'm audible. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, I think the larger question still exists, whether having a pet is moral or not, right? I think what side government tried to do was keep pushing examples of like people literally exploiting animals, or like institutions, or literally rich people who would rather like inbreed cats, as opposed to why the intention or incentive of keeping a pet is insofar as you want to care for these pets in the first place. I think they like literally didn't like they tried to prove why like the act of having a pet is immoral in any way. And insofar as it's confusing with all of these examples that they've tried to push us, as if like every single human being would want to take in an animal without like one literally having the responsibility of taking care of these animals in the first place. But secondly, as if every single human being on this planet would want to exploit these animals, as if we have anything to gain from keeping a bird locked up in a cage in our own house. I think they tried to do this on three levels. Number one, the living conditions of these animals in the first place, why it's immoral insofar as we're not able to take care of them properly. Number two, they tried to push to us how domestication is a fault of human lives, and as if it's a problem only side opposition has to shoulder. But number three, the fact that there are animals being exploited in the first place. I think I'll go back to number one, right? About how these living like conditions of these animals and how we're principally obligated to look after these animals in the first place. I think the option of you being able to opt into wanting a pet largely comes with the intentions of you wanting to take care of these pets in general. I think even if they wanted to draw parallels to like taking care of children, we literally see children as helpless human beings and beings that we need to take care of. I'm not sure as to why this exploitation is such a large push on their side, especially when it's done by only like a minority of the people. And even if that's the case, even if they wanted to prove that that's why it's immoral, I think it's largely better on opposition side when people still have the incentive to take care of pets. At least some people literally still care for the pets, and at least some people have an incentive to take care of them. I think then under the living conditions, I've already proved to you extensively in my first speech. But secondly, about the thing about like domestication in general, I think they tried to push to us as if it's our fault that this domestication happened, and now that these animals cannot survive on their own. Two responses to this. We've argued to you that this domestication happened as a result of like generations of like keeping pets, but generally the fact that they can't like provide or look after themselves happened largely because of external factors, as in humans industrializing and humans making cities that are uninhabitable for these pets in any way. I think like whether or not we kept pets, these things would have happened anyway. I don't know why they tried to push this as on oppositions, as if somehow it's our fault, as if this exact status quo doesn't happen on their side anyway. We've told you why even in like the case of domestication, why it's still largely better that we literally keep pets like with us insofar as we're able to protect them and give them the shelter and the food and the basic necessities that they actually need. But number two, they tried to push these things about vaccines, about how animals wouldn't have needed to have vaccines if we didn't start caring for them in the first place. We told you why this was false and how weird that like we literally are able to like these diseases have already existed anyway, and why we are the only people like the fact that we kept pets and cared enough to research about them literally means that we're expanding their lifespans and are able to look after them better. But I think even in number three, they wanted to push like the fact that we neglect these animals and exploit them. I think we argued enough that even if it's humans' fault that these animals are being exploited, then it's humans that have to correct it anyway. And I think it's largely better on our side, where we still have this sort of care and morality enough to care about pets and see them as actual lives rather than something arbitrary. And the fact that you remove these like personal connections from people to these pets, the fact that you no longer care about animals insofar as protecting their rights, then this is the moment in time where two things happen, right? We literally leave these animals to go die outside. But number two, we sort of become apathetic to these animals in the first place, where literally outside government, nobody cares about keeping pets or actually looking after animals, where they just see their lives as arbitrary. With that, I rest my.
Thank you so much, Brother Nabil, for the reply speech. I now welcome Sister Kuratu to give the reply speech for the government side.
Right, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Under the motion that this House believe that keeping animals as pets is immoral, we believe, we the government side believe that we've actually won this case in terms of proving that we are more morally right than the morally corrupted oppositions. All right, so this is because like how in terms of the morality debate, which what this whole session is about, government wins because we have given you a realistic view of the status quo and how we gave you the alternative to actually that actually provides a better resort for these animals. Okay, so it is a very big question of how a big point from the opposition side when they've mentioned that they said that it is a stable symbiosis for the between the pets and the people, when it is actually rated as like a marionetted way, as spoken by our second speaker from our side. So this further showed the irony in how the opposition wants to care for these animals. And the opposition today, they could not have proved that all human beings, all pet owners can have the morality as they assume, but as they assume only, but could not prove. So they could not show to us how they're actually not putting all these animals being exposed to possible abuse. So that was a very faulty thing for them, for their side. Okay, and they further did not show how would they prove, how would they solve that problem, since they're opposing about the whole idea of morality, right? Okay, so in our side, in the government side, we shows that the way we care is by saying that we focus on the improvement of the natural habitat, as mentioned by the first speaker and the second speaker. So the fact that we try to see these animals from their own from their natural righteousness, rather than in our sickening way of exploitation and morphing their physiological itself, shows how the opposition supports these kinds of supports the immoral practices of how we treat these animals. So we say that the government side wins this case because we've given you the alternatives to treat these animals morally, and why even if the proper care that the opposition side claims that humans can give to animals, it is not actually a proper care, because it is in itself historically an exploitation. So that's why we say that the opposition side should lose and the government side should win. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Sister Kuratu from the government side. We are now ending our first session. So great job, everyone. So now, judges, you are given maximum of 10 minutes to give your verbal adjudication.